You're gonna stop the recording,
Oh,
pause it
okay, I can pause it, yeah.
on the top.
All right. Hi, everyone. It's 1 o'clock, or 1:01, but we'll give folks a few more minutes to get logged in before we get started. For everybody who just joined, we're still waiting for a few more people to join so that we have quorum. So if everybody can just hang on, and we'll get started as soon as we're able to. Thanks. Hey, Les, is anybody else in the waiting room?
No, no one else.
Okay, well, I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order then. It's 1:05 p.m. on Tuesday, May 3rd. Welcome, everybody. We do have quorum with some new members. I'm so thankful you folks were able to join. We actually have quite a few people out traveling. So just to let everybody know, for council members, due to the new, I think it's, gosh, the new act anyways, that allowing remote meetings, we do have to be on video. And Jody, correct me if I'm wrong. I think Moana, I see that you've called in via phone. I don't know if you have video capabilities. And if that's something, for future meetings, if you can go ahead and make sure you have video. So I'm going to start off with doing introductions. I'm going to ask the council members to go first, and also pursuant to that act, we do have to state whether anybody is in the room with us. So I'll go ahead and start. Onaona Thone, chair of the council. Nobody is in the room with me. If I can go next to Roy. Oh, you're on mute, Roy.
Sorry, I always forget. Roy Albe, Oahu member, no one else is with me.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mike, go ahead. Oh, you're on mute now, Mike.
Okay, I'm Mike Tulane from the Big Island, and there's snow on Mauna Kea.
Is anybody in the room with you?
No one's in the room.
Thanks, Mike. Okay, Maka'ala.
Aka'ala from Kauai, and I am alone.
Thank you. Tessie.
Tessie Kinnaman from Kauai, all alone.
All right, thank you. Mahina.
Mahina Tudor from Oahu, all alone.
Okay, thanks. Steph.
Hello, everyone. Steph Dunbar Cole, and no one is in the room with me.
Okay, thanks, Steph. Rachel.
Aloha, I'm Rachel Sprague from Lanai, and no one is here with me.
Okay, thank you. Michelle.
Michelle Lefebvre in Hawaii, and I'm alone.
All right, thank you. And Moana.
Moana Beer from Oahu, and I am alone. I will be in video in about 5 minutes.
Okay, thanks, Moana. All right, also with us today, I see that we have Les Segundo from the Environmental Review Program, Mary Alice Evans from OPSD, and RAG Jody. So thank you, everybody, for joining. So we do have some folks who are traveling today. Yeah, as I was saying, I'm really happy that, some of our new members were able to join this meeting so that we're able to have quorum. Because we have chairs of several of the committees traveling, it is a rather light agenda, but we'll go ahead and we'll jump right into it. Let's see. So, if I can turn it over to you, Mary Alice, if you can go ahead and give the OPSD report.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me? Okay. Just for the new members orientation, I am not a member of the council. I am staff along with Les to the council. And so I wanted to just clarify that I'm here to support you, but not a member of the council. We've been following a number of legislative bills during this session. This week is the final week of the 2022 session. The legislature is wrapping up its business by conducting floor votes on the bills that did make it through conference committee with a conference draft 1, or where the both houses agreed on the language in on both sides, which is pretty rare. But so we don't have anything final until this week, but I do have some possibilities. I wanted to let you know that the state budget bill, House Bill 1600, does have funding for the Planner 5 position in the former Office of Environmental Quality Control, which has served as staff for this council over the years. That was a position that lost funding because it was vacant due to the passing of its prior incumbent when the legislature defunded all of the vacant positions in May of 2020 as the pandemic was lockdown was creating a financial disaster for the state of Hawaii. And so the restoration of those funds is a big deal for us. It was our top priority. It won't be effective until July 1. And then we will have to ask for approval to recruit and hire. But I am absolutely sure we'll get that, and we'll be able to have an additional planner in the office to support Chapter 343 and the council. There were other bills that we've been tracking, and we don't categorize them as environmental bills versus other bills. We look at ones that affect all of our programs. So we were tracking affordable housing, transit-oriented development, coastal and marine resources, and various bills that would have and probably will impact the Sunshine Law. So I think what I'd like to do, Chair, is put together a handout after the session is over on bills that have passed and are pending governor's decision on whether to veto or sign or allow to become law without a signature, if that would be okay.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. Thank you very much, Mary Alice.
Thank you.
Does anything else for your report today?
No, that's it.
Thank you. And does anybody have any questions for Mary Alice on her report? All right. Well, thank you, Mary Alice. And for the council's knowledge, we will go into a few of the bills that the council was following later in the agenda today. But for now, well, I do want to note for the record, Dawn, thanks for joining us. Can you let us know if anybody else is in the room with, or just introduce yourself and let us know if anybody else is in the room with you for the record.
I'm Dawn Hager. I'm eating lunch right now and no one's in the room with me.
Thanks, Dawn. All right, Mahina, I'll go ahead and hand it over to you for the Rules Committee report.
Thanks, Winona. So the Rules Committee met earlier this morning. As all of the members know, and just for a little bit of context for our new members, welcome. We have been working on our procedural rules maybe over the last year or so, only really seriously maybe the past few months. And so what we were trying to do is basically get rid of our authority to do appeals. We had a lot of discussions over these months. Kind of where we're at right now is given our transition to OPSD, and thanks to the wise counsel of Jody from the AG's office and Mary Alice Evans, what we discussed today was basically repealing chapter 201, which would give us more flexibility. If we had our procedural rules as policies and procedures instead of rules, it would give us more flexibility just to change things. As we all know, the process in amending our other rules package was really long and cumbersome. So let's see. Yeah, we just. Yeah,
if you don't
sorry,
mind,
go ahead.
just a little bit more background for the new members. Yeah, so last legislative session, I think it was 2021. I think it's Act 152, and don't quote me on the numbers because I forget, but we were moved from DOH to OPSD administratively, right? So part of with that act, all of the council's rules, including HAR 11-201, which are procedural rules, and HAR 11-200.1, which are the revised 340 or EIS rules were moved over and preserved, and now under OPSD. That act also did a couple of other things in terms of changing our annual reporting requirement. So we don't have a separate annual reporting requirement. And instead of, prior to that, the council did hear applicant appeals from EISs that were not accepted. So that act actually changed our authority. So we do not have the authority to hear appeals from applicant EISs, and that will go through the same process as somebody challenging an accepted 343 document, which is to file a deck action with the court. So really, context for repealing the procedural rules are that our rules, we don't really have approval authority for anything. Therefore, we can probably do something a little bit more informal, such as policies and procedures. Okay, sorry, Mahina, back to you.
No, that's perfect. Thank you for that. So yeah, what we discussed today was repealing 201, chapter 201. So I guess before our recommendation coming out of our committee meeting is that the council consider repealing 201. We're not going to do any decision making today. I believe that's going to be agendized for the next meeting, but I just want to kind of, or Onauna, if you want to open it up for discussion, if anybody has any questions or thoughts on that.
Yeah, thank you, Mahina. Right, and so the reason we're not taking action on it today is I didn't agendize an action item, but we can go ahead and discuss. Again, the committee discussed it today. If any of the other council members have questions, please let us know. If I can add, one of the other things we discussed now that we may be moving to, just seeing these policies and procedures, we can probably look at this as a larger document in terms of, what it will comprise of. Previously, our rules really dealt with, contested case hearings were for the council, the appeals, declaratory actions, how do you file things with the council, that sort of thing. In committee, we discussed potentially adding in, the procedures that the INO committee has worked on for us, including that in there, as well as, what was the other thing we're talking about? I think there was something else we were thinking we would include, just kind of have a comprehensive thing. About virtual meetings, practices and procedures for meetings in general. So, if this group can kind of think on it, I plan to agendize the same topic with an action item for June. And we can go ahead and discuss, if this group is on board with essentially repealing all of Title 11, Chapter 201, which again is limited solely to the council's procedural rules, not touching anything with the 343 rules at this time. So with that, I'll open it up to questions, and Jody, or questions could be directed at Mahina, myself, Jody, or Mary Alice on this. And I know Mary Alice, maybe if you want to talk about what you told us in the Rules Committee, that this is something that has been done for other boards and commissions, correct?
Yes, that's correct. Where a commission is an advisory commission, having rules is very slow and inflexible, but having the council have authority over its own policies and procedures for its operations means that this council will have that authority and will be able to make changes as they deem appropriate and necessary. And I want the council to have that authority to do that. So that's my reasoning for this. The policies and procedures would effectively replace the current Hawaii Administrative Rules, Chapter 201, which is limited to the operations of the council, not Chapter 343, which is the Hawaii Environmental Review Law that sets out the requirements for conducting environmental assessments and environmental impact statements for any project that has a trigger in the statute. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Mary Alice. Do any council members have questions about what the Rules Committee is recommending? with respect to the repeal of HR 11-201. Oh, go ahead, Jody.
If anyone has questions that I wouldn't want to interrupt. I just wanted to say that I did follow up and find out the answer to the question of whether you can just change the numbering for chapter 200.1 instead of going to the full rules. And it doesn't look like there is any kind of like expedited way to just change the numbering. So I just wanted to let you folks know that one. And then I kind of did do a rough process of the rule amendment process. So I don't know if you folks want that, but it's kind of involved. It's going to have to go to the governor in order to get his okay to go to public hearing. And then after the public hearing, come back again to the governor. So there is kind of, there's a lot of steps in the process, but Alyssa and I, of course, will work together on that.
Thanks, Jody. And, so just for the council members' knowledge, when Jody was talking about switching the numbers, so separate from HR 11-201, which are the council's procedural rules, we did ask what's the process for switching over 11-200.1, which are the EIS rules, because currently the numbering is still under the Department of Health, right? Title 11's Department of Health, and I believe DBED's Title 15, correct? And whether or not there was a truncated process if we wanted to just switch the numbers. And so it sounds like no, that we'd probably have to go through rulemaking. So thanks, Jody, for looking into that. I think the other thing that we had asked you to take a look at, and this can be for the June discussion, if you hadn't, was what's the process to repeal the whole chapter for 11-201 for the procedural rules only. So Jody will give us a report on that at the June meeting. Okay, thanks, Jody. All right, any questions on that? Okay, go ahead, Makala.
I just, when any of the other committees, standing committees specifically, that are going through changes in their procedures and so forth, it's good for us all, I guess maybe chair for the chairs at least, to be clear that this is a good time to let's do it all if we can. Get it in one swipe. They're not going to be that different. The ability to meet electronically should apply one and all, right? So everybody should be able to use the same language. And then whatever INO wants to do as far as their procedures for forums and so forth, this is a good time to do all of that. So maybe this is an opportunity for committees to meet specifically on that issue if they're interested.
Yep, I agree. And unfortunately, we're missing the chairs of a lot of those committees right now. But I'll make sure to reach out to them and let them know this will be on the agenda for June for discussion again. Thanks, Makala. Okay, so I think we kind of ended up just rolling into the second bullet point under the Rules Committee update was, discussion of the process to amend 11-200.1. So again, we'll hear more from Jody on that. I think a lot of folks on this council are very familiar with that process, having done the large update to 11-200.1. I think we'll need to discuss as a council what process we're looking for, and it might depend on what amendments, if any, need to be done to 11-200.1. With the last update, because it was an overhaul of the entire chapter reorganization, bringing it up to date, OEQC under the direction of Scott had really come up with a process that was, above and beyond what's required by Chapter 91 in terms of the public outreach and numbers of drafts that went out to the public. So, I think that's something that we'll have to think about if we're able to do that. There was a process for commenting online, which, I think we'd have to look into that again. That was something I think that was helpful to submit comments online. And I think, again, it will depend on the process that we propose will depend on what amendments, if any, need to be there. Off the top of my head, again, changing the numbers so that we're under Title 15 is going to be, the big one. And our rules do still have a section on appeals to the council, right? So that one needs to be deleted. I know others have expressed potential changes to other sections, and again, we'll have to go ahead and talk about that. So if we're ready at the next meeting, what I can do is I can add an agenda item for proposed amendments to 11-200.1. I'm interested in hearing from this group if that's the time to start doing it. If folks are ready to put forth those types of amendments, other than the cleanup stuff that really results from moving from DOH to OPSD. So I open that up for discussion. Go ahead, Makala.
I'd like to just say out loud that this is a great opportunity for us to talk about the move from DOH to OPSD, what that means for the people, the communities, the public, what that means for the council, and the fact that we supported that move. I'm sure there are some who look at that whole process as it came down at the ledge and are a little blurry on what happened and why and how and so forth. And I'd like to put it in a positive light. So at any rate, I do think we need a public process. I'm not sure it needs to be the fly to every island twice trip, but I do think it needs to be a good public process and as inclusive as it possibly can be for Rachel and Michelle and Moana. One of my soapboxes has been to make sure that we have the capacity to receive, understand, and preserve oral testimony and not just written testimony. This is our community. And if Uncle wants to stand up and talk about the price of spam, then he gets to do that. So Zoom offers that opportunity if there is support and assistance. And it takes a little bit of effort and coordination, but we're all connected with our communities and should be able to facilitate that in any kind of discussion the council has with where we need feedback and we want to collect comments and concerns. So just because you haven't heard my spiel before, that's my thing. Not every community, experiences that like we do on Kauai, but we do on Kauai. So whatever process we select, I don't know, Chair, if maybe we've now had a couple of years of experience in government with Zoom and GoToMeeting and Google Meets and all the rest of it. And I'm sure that we don't need to invent the wheel on how to help the untrained, inexperienced to get their comments in an online form process, and make it as easy and friendly as we can.
Right. And we continue, all our meetings every month are open to the public, and any discussions on amendments to the rules would presumably be had in these meetings, right? And so Maka, all your points are well taken. I think going forward, when we talk about process, we do, there's going to be a rules process that we follow in terms of putting out drafts of the rules. And I think you touched on, educating folks about what the council does, which I think is separate and really should be done through an INO forum. But, I think we can discuss and use all opportunities to kind of educate folks on our process, right? It's just if it's going to be something more general, that might be better through an INO forum rather than when we get into the rules. I mean, I think a lot of you folks remember the last time. I mean, those meetings were jam-packed with comments and specifically on the rules. And we had, several special meetings to make up the time and additional meetings, to get through the substantive comments on the rules. So again, depending on what other amendments, if any, are proposed to the rules, it could be a quick process. And like I said, I mean, renumbering, and we definitely have to repeal the appeals to the council provision. But at this point, I think we do have to have a larger discussion on whether or not there are any other tweaks that we need to do to the rules that we've noticed, over the process, over the last couple of years since they have been implemented. Okay. Any other discussion on this topic? Go ahead, Steph.
I wasn't able to make our meeting in April, but I recall there being a strategic planning meeting, and I'm wondering if this came up at all then, and I'm thinking that it did not.
If the rules came up?
No, just in terms of our outreaching in regards to our identity with our constituents.
Yeah, there were discussions on that, and I know we haven't well, here, let's close let's close the rule stuff because we do have the strategic planning item later in the agenda. Is there anything else specifically on the rules committee update? Okay. Well, thanks, Mahina, and rules committee members, Mary Alice and Jody, for your help in navigating that process. We continue to navigate it. Okay, so since Steph's question came up, if no one objects, I'll go ahead and move item 5. If we can take that up first, which is, the update on the strategic planning forum. Are there any objections to doing that since this discussion? Okay. Okay, seeing none, let's go ahead and do that. So, Robin unfortunately is traveling this month. So I noted in the agenda that we're going to have, a better summary from him at the next meeting in June. But I wanted to use this agenda item since it's so fresh in most people's mind. If there was any things that you wanted to express about the forum, I think we had, personally, a really good discussion. It was great that Mary Alice and Scott were able to participate. And Steph, there was discussion about, continuing to do outreach, right? And, inwardly looking at what do we see us going forward. And I have to say, I'm not prepared to give you a whole rundown. Again, this is something that Robin will go ahead and present on at the next meeting, since he led that forum. But, if anybody else wants to talk about how they felt about the forum or just, give any insight to Steph since she wasn't able to attend, please go ahead. Maka'ala.
I think first of all, I'd just like to say how well it was facilitated. Robin did an extraordinary job. I've experienced his facilitation for many years, and it's always even-handed and organized and well done, a little bit creative at times, but I've never left feeling unheard or without an opportunity to listen and or share. And again, he pulled that off. He's really good at what he does. And in my experience, it's unusual to have a facilitator that's really close to a subject be as fair-handed as he is. Usually it has to be somebody from the outside that's not engaged, but somehow Robin does it, and I know he's in it. So I don't know how he does that. When he gets back, I certainly will repeat all that, but I just wanted to say it to this group. And I do think that everything we do is colored by the perceptions of those with whom we do it. What does the public think of us was sort of the point, right? What do constituents, as you phrase it, Steph, what do they think we do? First of all, what do they think we do? And secondly, how do they think we do it? And we have some work to do on what they think we do. And that's kind of where I was going a little bit earlier. So it gives really good guidance. And I think our discussion honed in on quite a bit of that. And I look forward to the next meeting when Robin can report his perception and his notes on what happened.
Great, thanks, Maka'ala. Anybody else have anything they want to say on this issue? Okay, no, and I think Steph, I know if you're interested, we do, and Les, correct me if I'm wrong, have the recording of the strategic planning forum. So yeah, if you did want to just, listen to it in the background while you're doing other work, I know you're so busy. I think that's something that Les can arrange to send to you.
Yes, I can.
Okay, thank you, Les.
Thank you both.
Great. So yeah, with that, I'll move on from this agenda item again. Just wanted to get, if any folks had feelings, I mean, you're welcome to reserve them, you know, and review your own notes before the next meeting in June, where I'll ask that Robin do give us a better summary, and then, you know, perhaps what are the next steps for us as a council moving forward, coming up for that. So I think for the strategic planning committee, there may be future meetings on that, you know, which again, I'll leave to Robin. Okay, so I will go back now to agenda item number 4, which is the legislative update. Robin is not here, but before he left, he did give me a quick summary. Les, you know, linked all of the bills that we're basically talking about in the GMs. You know, you folks don't have to review those in detail. That's just there for your reference. I'm going to highlight, you know, just a few of the bills that the council was following. HB 1803, this was the measure proposing a constitutional amendment to Article 1, which says, it was proposing an amendment that recognizes the fundamental right of all people, including future generations, to clean water and air, a healthful environment and climate, and a healthy native ecosystem and beaches. This item as of April 21st had been deferred, so it doesn't look like that's going to go anywhere this legislative session. HB 1810, which is the amendment for the EAC quorum. This one actually passed both the Senate and the House. There was at one point, you know, House disagreement with a Senate change, but it looks like that got worked out. And, you know, as far as we know, this is going to be going on to Gov, and we think Gov will sign. So that's hopeful for us. And this was actually because, you know, we didn't have a full council for so long, right? So we proposed an amendment that says that a quorum will be the majority of the members appointed rather than a majority of the total number allowed. And the same for votes on doing business. Now, you know, with our new appointees or our new confirmed members, we're actually at 14 of 15 total. So we have close to a full council, which is really great. The last bill I mentioned is HB 2256. This was the proposal for the creation of a Department of the Environment. As of April 21st, it passed, and it's now in the Ways and Means Committee. And Mary Alice, I don't know if you have any update on that one in particular. Well, if you do, feel free to jump in. Oh, there you go.
Okay, which one is
HB 2256. This is for the Department of Environmental Protection. I think last we looked at it, April 21st it was in WAM. I don't know if there's any.
It did not pass.
It did not. Okay, that's unfortunate. Well, hopefully in future years, this is one that, you know, some iteration of this bill has been proposed, you know, in the last several years. So maybe there'll be something from that later.
I'll take a quick check on that.
Okay, thanks, Mary Alice. And then the last thing I had again was, you know, all 4 of the nominations for our new members were passed and they have been confirmed. So, you know, nice to see you folks. The only one we're missing right now is Gordon. He's come to a lot of meetings in the past, so folks are familiar with him. And Moana, what I might ask that you do is if you want to just go ahead and introduce yourself. You know, Rachel and Michelle were able to attend our strategic planning session, so we got to know them a little through that, but I wanted to just give you an opportunity if you want to do a short spiel about yourself.
Okay. Aloha, everyone. I am currently the Executive Director for the Conservation Council for Hawaii. I've been in this position since February of 2020, so just in time for COVID to come hit us blindsided. Prior to that, I worked at Waimea Valley on the North Shore of Oahu as the Assistant Executive Director and oversaw all of the day-to-day operations, including our forest stewardship plans, our conservation plans, work we did with USDA to reforest the native watershed up above in our Mauka, Uka to Mauka areas. I have been a board member on the North Shore Community Land Trust for I think 13 years now, and sat on our North Shore Neighborhood Board for about 7 years in 2010 until about 2017. So I appreciate the opportunity to serve on this council and seeing all of you.
All right, mahalo Moana and welcome. Rachel and Michelle, I know you folks have given similar spiels. I mean, did you want to do it again? It's up to you. You can say yes or no. We have time. Okay, sounds like no.
Yeah, I'm good.
Go ahead.
I'm
Oh,
good.
go ahead, Michelle. Go
No,
for
no,
it.
no, I was just gonna say no thanks. You said yes
Oh,
or no. That's it.
okay. Yeah, again, I know you folks have done it a couple of times already, so I don't want to put you on the spot again. You know, other than that, our agenda that's really all we have for today. It was our next meeting is June 7th. In terms of planning for the next meeting, you know, other things that came up in our rules meeting was I'm going to agendize at the next meeting a review of the standing committee assignments. And for, you know, the new members, you folks can think about what committees you might want to serve on. So currently our standing committees are the Rules Committee, which again is the first committee, the first line of defense for looking at rule amendments. The Exemptions Committee, which looks at the agency exemption list. So for the last several years, since everybody on this committee has been on, we've been doing a review with agencies to update, you know, refresh their exemption list, right? Which the council will review and we can concur with. It's not an approval, just a concurrence. And under the new rules, HR 11-200.1, I think some of you may be familiar, but there's actually a process whereby exemptions are categorized into a type 1 and type 2 exemption. Type 1 are really, or part 1 and part 2. Part 1 are really de minimis administrative things. You know, the typical example is buying paper clips or paying payroll, right? Things that don't really need an exemption determination. And then part 2 are the bigger things where, okay, we're going to require the agency to actually do an exemption determination and provide that list of what they're giving exemptions for to ERP to be published on the 23rd, right, Les? We do exemption lists on the 23rd in the environmental notice. I think it's the 23rd, not the 8th. But that way the public is notified about what exemptions are being done by agencies, and to the extent they want to, you know, challenge that, they have the 120 days by statute to do it. So that's what the exemption committee does. We work with the agencies to review exemption lists that are submitted to us. We comment on it, you know, sometimes suggest revisions, and then if we recommend it, we'll recommend it to the council for concurrence. We have the Information and Outreach Committee, which is INO for short. So this committee is really the folks that are planning, you know, forums that we have kind of, you know, for the public or with other agencies. And they do really all of the planning for that. So that's really good. And I think going forward, you know, to the extent we do any more rules amendments or, you know, policy making, you know, I think Rules Committee and INO will work really closely on presenting that to the public going forward. We have Legislative Committee, which is very active during the legislative session. And so these folks, you know, track legislation that might be of interest to the council. And to the extent that the council may want to submit testimony on it, you know, it kind of gets filtered through them and they make recommendations to the council. We still have an annual reports committee, even though it has changed somewhat. So annual report, you know, usually in the second half of the year, we'll get a little bit more active as we start preparing for our annual report, which now goes through OPSD. And then over the last couple of months, the last committee that we have is the Strategic Planning Committee. So, which again, taking from the Strategic Planning Forum that we had last year, we're looking at inwards, you know, to what is our role going forward now that we have made this move from the Department of Health to OPSD. And also now that our roles have changed where we actually do not have rulemaking authority. That authority lies with OPSD for the 343 roles in consultation with us. So I think we'll still, you know, as a council play a large role in advising OPSD on, you know, any proposed rule amendments. Also, we're not doing appeals anymore. We still continue to review exemption lists. So really looking at what is our role going forward? And, you know, how can we be of value as a council, right? So that's the short rundown of committees. You don't need to tell me today, but think about it. And in our next meeting, we'll go over everybody's assignments again and, you know, see where you folks kind of want to be, what you want to be on. I think the rule is, you know, we don't serve on more than 2 committees. I think it gets to be too much, and also for scheduling purposes, right? it can be difficult, but maybe think about, you know, 2 you want to serve on. I think everybody's serving on 2, right about there. Yeah, and any questions on that? Or anything anybody else wanted to add? If I didn't give an accurate or thorough description on a committee, please feel free to jump in. Okay, and then I think the other thing that, you know, I just want to get you folks thinking about it, that we do want to talk about for next time is, you know, meetings going forward, right? And I talked to Emery Alice a little bit about this today in our Rules Committee meeting. I mean, of course, everybody knows the council itself doesn't really, we don't have a monetary budget. Prior to, well, monetary, but we don't have a budget. We have 0 money. But so, and really our support comes from OPSD and from ERP's budget, right? So we have to be very mindful of that. Prior to COVID, we did all of our meetings in person. We have taken advantage of using, you know, the online meetings throughout this process. Now I'm aware that some boards and commissions have begun meeting either via hybrid or completely in person right now. And so Les has been, you know, thank you, Les, for providing a forum for the public to physically come to if they want to. And that's what we're required to do under the new act that had went into effect earlier this year. But I want to get your folks' sense on, you know, how do you feel about continuing all virtual meetings? Is there an appetite for some in-person meetings, or what do we want to do? And again, you don't need to have a response now, just kind of start thinking about it. You know, again, we are very limited in our budget on what we can do, but perhaps it's nice to have, you know, a couple of meetings in person throughout the year if we're able to get the funding to do so, or something to that effect. So just think about it. I'll go ahead and add an agenda item for the June meeting, and we can have, you know, a discussion on that once folks kind of think about it. Is there anything else that anybody would like to be on the June agenda? And if something comes up, please feel free to, you know, just go ahead and email me. But if you have anything right now you want to discuss. Okay. Sounds like no. Anything else? Any just other announcements? Real short meeting today, otherwise. No. All right, folks. Well, if there's nothing else, I won't hold you longer. I know everybody is very busy. Thank you so much for your time, and please keep an eye out. So Les, right around the 23rd, sends out, you know, this is for the new members. He'll send out an email letting everybody know when our next meeting is, which is going to be, you know, Tuesday, June 7th, and then taking a poll for quorum. So, you know, please go ahead and respond to him if you're not going to be able to make it, or if you're going to be late for some reason, just so that we know and we're able to plan. And then that's also a time to let me know if there are other items that you need to be on the agenda, so that I can get in contact with your committee chairs and make sure that we get that agendized. Agendas are posted, you know, 6 days before the meeting. And yeah, that's really all I have. Okay, so it is 1:48 p.m. Thank you so much, everybody. And with that, I will go ahead and adjourn the meeting. All right. Take care, everybody. Thank you, Les.
You're welcome.